Hi guys, welcome to this video on Angular 16. I'm going to be talking about very important topic in this language called subjects and behavior subject. You might be running into a problem that you need to share your data within one components and to other components, and you might be thinking using the redux, ngrx, input output decorators, but there is a better way to do it. If you have a small application like the blog note taking app, then you need to use these subjects and behavior subjects in order to share the data between the components rather than going to other options like the ngrx redux. But if you have a big application, then obviously you can use the ngrx or redux. So I have opened up this VS code, and in this VS code I'm going to be creating a new project of Angular 16, and I have the latest version of Node, which is 18. With that, I created and installed the new version of Angular CLI, and then I'm creating a new version of Angular, and it will be creating the new version of Angular 16 project. So I'm gonna be writing the subjects Angular 16. Okay, so it's going to take some time, and it's going to install that project in our directory which I have opened. So first of all, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a small application, some components and the service, and I will show you that what is the purpose of both subjects and behavior subjects. And once we understand that what the purpose of it, then I will show you what is the difference between these two, so you can better decide in your application that which one you need to use. So our project is created, and I have run this project on the browser, and this is the default view added in our main component, which is the app component. Here you can see this is the HTML which I will be removing from here, and now I'll be creating couple of components and a service. So I'll come in the terminal and I will write ngrx, and within the services folder I will be writing shared data. So it will create a new service. Along with this, I'll be creating couple of components. So I'll be writing nggc components slash sender, and then the components slash receiver. I need to create one by one. So I'll first create the sender component, and then I'll be creating a receiver component. Okay, so now let's open up our service, and inside it I will be importing the subject and behavior subject from rxjs, and let's import that. So let's add the subject and the behavior subject. So inside this class I will be creating two variables for these subjects and the behavior subject. So I'll be writing the subject data equals to subject, and it will take the data of type string, and initially we won't be giving it any value, but behavior subject require an initial value. This is the one difference, but there are other logical difference as well, which I'll be letting you know at the end of this video when we are done with this application, a small application actually. So I will be writing the behavior subject equals to new behavior subject, and it is of type string, and I'll be giving it an initial value. Okay, so this is a string, and after this I'll be creating three functions. One is the send data, and it will take the data of type string, and it will not return anything. And then I will be writing this dot subject data dot next, and this is how we save the data in subjects and the behavior subject. And I'm using an extension of VS Code called tab9 AI assistant, and it is suggesting me few stuff. So I can add the get subject data, and it is going to return this dot subject data as observable. And next I'm going to be writing the get behavior subject data. Okay, and it's going to return that observable of the behavior subject which we have created above. And I don't need this constructor, I'll be removing it, and this is pretty much it we need to do over here. Let's go to our app module. Our sender and receiver components are already added, and we also need to import that that service that we have just created. So it will be the shared data service, and we need to add it in the provider because we need to use it in the constructor of our components. Okay, so this has been added. Another thing we will be needing over here is the form module. Okay, and form module needs to be added in this imports array, because we will be writing and creating some input elements in our component to check the behavior subject and the subject. Okay, so now let's go to our components, and inside it, first of all, let's open up the sender component, and in the sender component I'll be importing that service which I've just created. So this is the shared data service which have been imported, and then in this class I will be creating a new variable, and then I will be creating a constructor, and inside it I'll be creating an object for that service. And let's add a function, and inside this function I'll be using that service to send the data of the input. So I will need to write some kind of HTML over here, but it's a pretty small HTML, so I don't need to open up the HTML file. I can directly write over here. Okay, so within this I can actually start writing my HTML. So I'll start off with the type equals to text, and then I can write ng model equals to input data, and I'm using ng model. That's why I actually imported that forms module in app module file and added it in the imports array. Otherwise it will throw an error. So button click send, send data, and then we need to have this send data function which we have added over here. Okay, so let's also run the project meanwhile, so we keep on looking at our UI if there are no errors in the code which we are writing. So there is no error. Let's go and let's refresh, and it should actually show the data because we have not added its reference in this HTML file. That's why it is not showing the data over here. So first of all, let's add the app sender, and then we need to add the selector for the app receiver. So let's save it. This is not existing. Let's go to, we have not actually have to add over here. So this is the app receiver. Let's try to copy so there is no error over here. Spelling mistakes. And this is not dash actually. Okay, so I've saved it, and now let's refresh and receiver works. And in order to receive the data, we need to write some code in the receiver component, and our form is working fine here. So let's open up the receiver component over here. First of all, I'm going to be removing everything from here, and in this receiver component, first of all, I'm going to be adding few HTML to show the data which is being sent from that subject and behavior subject. Okay, so I'm going to be writing the h2 and subject equals to, and I'll be creating two variables below, and I'm going to name it subject data. Let's end the h2 and then h2 for the behavior, and then the behavior subject data which I'll be creating below. Okay, so let's come inside this class, and I'll be creating the subject data of type string. Let's make it optional by adding the exclamation mark, and then I'll be creating behavior subject data, and then I will be creating the constructor. And inside this constructor, I don't need to actually initialize it. I want to fetch it from that service which I've created. So I'll just be creating that variable for the service which I have just created. So I'll be writing the shared data service. So it will be the shared data service colon shared data service. Okay, so after this I'll be creating an ng on init, which is the subject data. I don't need this actually. I will be implementing ng on init here, and on init, and it will be imported over here. Okay, so in this hook ng on init, make sure that you watch my video on the Angular 16 lifecycle hooks. There are 8 hooks which I have already created a video of, and it is quite extensive and long video. You must watch that in order to understand all the 8 hooks of Angular. So First of all, I'm going to call the get subject data, which is the function of the service I've created, and it will give us a subscribe. Okay, and inside it, let's receive the data, and then I will be storing the data in our variable which we have created above. Okay, so after this I will be creating the same steps for that behavior subject variable. So tab 9 AI assistant extension is suggesting me some cool stuff, so I think it has suggested me pretty much 100% code which I wanted to write. This is awesome. And yeah, so let's save it, and I've already added it in the HTML, so it should be visible. You can see it is visible, and by default it is showing the initial value over here, because whenever this component is going to be loaded, this hook is automatically going to be triggered. When it is automatically going to be triggered, it means that these variables will become the subscribers of those subject and behavior subject through this function which is using over here. Okay, so that's why this subject and behavior subject are showing the initial value, because by default they are initialized. Okay, so now if I try to enter something and send the data, you can see that it is showing the data over here, and it is the sender and this is the receiver. So this is the component, and it is passing the data, it is updating the data in the service, and these receivers are subscribing to that service. Okay, subscribing to those observables. Then they, whenever that service observable is going to be updated, all the subscribers which are actually subscribed to that data will be updated and will receive the data over here. Okay, if I keep on updating that, it will be updating over here. Okay, just to show you that if there are more than one subscribers, mean there are more than one components, then whether it works or not. And after this I will show you the difference between these two. So I'm going to be creating another component, and in the terminal I'm going to be creating ngrx and the components and the slash, and I'm going to be writing the second receiver. Okay, so it should be added over here. You can see it is added over here, and I'll just be copy pasting everything from here, this receiving component over here. Okay, and I need to actually import this shared data service at the top from that receiver component. So let's try to receive that from here. Okay, so error is gone. Now we need to add HTML over here, just like we added in here. So I'm gonna be copying this template second, and I'm going to be pasting over here. All right, and it will not show anything as of now because we have to add its selector name in our main app HTML component. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's copy its selector name, copy, and I'm going to go over here, and here I'm going to add its selector name, and it will be added over here. Okay, so now you can see that both of these are subscribed to that sender, the observables. And if I change the value in the service, the observable, whether all the subscribers, all the components actually receive the data or not. So I can actually change the data from this component as well, the second receiver, and it will be first receiver, and it will be received in this second receiver as well. Okay, so both way it will work. So if I add the data, you can see that all the components which are subscribed to that subject and behavior subject are receiving the data. This is awesome. Now let's talk about what is the difference between these two. So I will be modifying this second receiver component in order to show you the difference. So I'll be go here, and I will open up this second receiver. And first of all, I need to actually modify this template, but first let's add a variable over here. So subscribed equals to false. Okay, and I won't be subscribing it directly in this on init hook of Angular. I will be subscribing it by clicking on a button which I'll be adding in the HTML above. Okay, so first of all, I will not first let's wrap these two h2s within a div. Okay, So I'll be adding a div and I will be adding an ngif equals to subscribed variable which I have created below, and I'll be ending it with the div as well. Okay, and at the top I'll be adding a button. Click, and let's add a button. Change this to subscribe data. Okay, and it will not return anything. And once this function is going to be triggered with this button which I'm creating, then these two subscribers will be getting the data. It will not be subscribed to the initial data by default. Okay, so now once these are subscribed, after this let's make that subscribe variable true. Okay, so now let's add that click event to this function which I have created here, and then subscribe button. Let's save it. There seems an error. Let's see, there is a div and there has to be this ending div as well. Okay, so now you can see that this has been done. Let's go ahead and here this is not showing anything because this function is not getting triggered. Okay, let's try to trigger that first. So I'll be adding the subscribe, and now you can see that it is actually showing the initial value and this is showing the subject, and this is what we expected. But if I refresh the page and let's try to create something, and this has been done, and I'm going to send the data over here. So obviously this is the first receiver and it is going to receive the data, both the subject and behavior subject. Okay, now if I click on the subscribe, you will see that behavior subject is going to take the previous value as well, even though it was not even subscribed to that observable, but still it was able to manage that what was the previous response from that observable, and it has actually showing that, but subject is not able to fetch the previous value before subscribing. Okay, after once now this subject is subscribed because this function is triggered and both of these subscribed, and the behavior subject actually showed the previous value as well, even though it was not even subscribed to that, still it was able to fetch that. But now if I click on the subscribe, this send again, now you can see that it will show the data which is being sent to that subject. So means that this subject actually only remembers and show the data which is being received and broadcasted after it is subscribed. Okay, but behavior subject actually show the initial value as well, even though it was not even subscribed as well. The initial value means the last value. It will not be maintaining an array of all the previous values, but it will only be showing only one previous value. Okay, so this is the difference between these two, and I hope that I have shown you how we can create subjects and behavior subject, what is the benefit of it. So you need to use it for communication of the components. Wherever you want to build an application which contains around 20 to 25 components, then it is a good way to actually do it. Don't go to ngrx or redux. So thank you so much for watching. I'm spending a lot of time creating these videos, so guys, don't forget to subscribe my channel and see you in the next videos.